My husband damaged my brakes and insisted I drive. I handed the keys to his mistress, who needed a ride. Hours later, the police handed him her driver's license. And he fainted when he saw me walk down the stairs. That morning started like any other Thursday. David kissed my forehead at breakfast, told me he loved me, and asked what my plans were for the day. 23 years of marriage had taught me to read his moods like a weather forecast. And that morning, something felt off. His smile was too wide. His voice had that forced cheerfulness people use when they're lying to children. I thought I'd go to the grocery store, I said, sipping my coffee. We're out of milk again. Perfect. He said it too loud, too fast. Take my car. I'll use yours today. Mine has better air conditioning, and it's supposed to be hot. I looked out the window at the overcast sky, the temperature barely 60 degrees. It's fine. I can take mine. No. He stood up, grabbing his keys from the hook. I insist. Mine drives smoother anyway. You'll be more comfortable. That's when I saw it. His hand was shaking. Not the gentle tremor of too much caffeine, but the visible shake of pure adrenaline. Sweat beaded at his temples, even though the kitchen was cool. David worked in accounting. Nothing made him nervous. Not presentations, not audits, not even his mother's visits. But here he was, practically vibrating with anxiety over which car I drove to the grocery store. Okay, I said slowly. Thank you. The relief that washed over his face made my stomach turn. He kissed me again, harder this time, almost desperately. Drive safe, honey. I love you. He left for work 10 minutes later in my sedan. I watched from the window as he pulled out of the driveway, and the moment his car turned the corner, I grabbed my phone and walked outside. Thank you for being here. This story isn't easy to tell, but knowing you're listening makes it easier. Stay with me until the end, and if you want, let me know where you're from in the comments. I'm curious how far these words will travel. His SUV sat in the driveway, gleaming in the pale morning light. David had always been meticulous about car maintenance. He washed it every Sunday, changed the oil religiously, kept the interior spotless. I walked around to the driver's side and stopped. There, on the concrete beneath the front wheel, was a small puddle. Dark, oily, spreading slowly. My heart started pounding. I crouched down, my knees protesting, and peered under the car. I'm not a mechanic, but I've been married to a cautious man for over 2 decades. I know what a well-maintained car looks like underneath. This wasn't it. The brake line had a clean slice in it, precise and deliberate. Fluid dripped steadily onto the driveway, forming that dark puddle. If I'd driven this car, if I'd gotten on the highway, if I'd needed to stop suddenly, I stood up so fast I got dizzy. My hands were shaking now too. This wasn't neglect. This wasn't an accident. Someone had cut that line. And David had insisted, practically begged me to drive this car today. My husband wanted me dead. The thought was so absurd, so completely insane, that I almost laughed. David? My David, who cried at dog food commercials and brought me flowers every anniversary. David, who'd held my hand through my father's funeral and learned to make my mother's lasagna recipe. But the brake line didn't lie. And neither did the sweat on his forehead, or the shake in his hands, or the manic insistence that I take his car. I pulled out my phone, my thumb hovering over the emergency call button. But what would I say? My husband cut his own brake line and asked me to drive his car. They'd ask why. They'd investigate. They'd find out about the fights we'd been having lately. The distance between us. The way he'd been coming home late smelling like perfume that wasn't mine. The perfume. God, I'd been so stupid. I'd convinced myself he was working late. That the floral scent was from a female colleague giving him a hug. I'd swallowed every lie because believing him was easier than facing the truth. How long had he been planning this? How long had he been waiting for the right moment to kill his wife and move on to whatever life he wanted without me? I was still standing there, staring at the puddle of brake fluid when I heard the car pull up. A silver Honda parked across the street, and my heart stopped completely when I saw who stepped out. Jessica Miller. I knew her. She'd worked with David at the firm 3 years ago, back when they'd had that big merger. She'd come to our house for a company barbecue once, brought potato salad, complimented my garden. She'd quit not long after, said she was moving to a better opportunity downtown. She was beautiful in that effortless way that had always made me feel inadequate. Late 30s, tall, with auburn hair that caught the light. She wore a tight black dress and heels that clicked on the pavement as she marched toward my house. I should have gone inside. I should have locked the door. But I couldn't move. I just stood there like an idiot while she stormed up my driveway, her face twisted with fury. "Where is he?" she demanded. "Who?" My voice came out strangled. "Don't play stupid with me. Where's David?" "He's at work." She laughed, bitter and harsh. "Of course he is. Of course he ran away like a coward." She looked around, spotted David's SUV, and her eyes lit up. "Fine, I'll go find him myself. My car won't start, but I'm sure he won't mind if I borrow his." She started walking toward the driver's side door, toward the car with the cut brake line, toward the death trap my husband had prepared for me. I should have warned her. That's what a good person would do. A decent human being would have said, "Wait, don't drive that car, the brakes are damaged." But all I could think about was the way David had kissed me this morning. The way he'd insisted I drive this car. The 23 years of my life I'd given him, and how he'd repaid me by trying to murder me so he could be with her. Jessica opened the driver's door. "Where are the keys?" I looked at her, really looked at her. This woman had been sleeping with my husband. She'd been in his arms while I waited at home, cooking dinners he'd claim he was too full to eat. She'd heard him say things he used to say to me. She'd made plans for a future that required me to be dead. On the kitchen table, I heard myself say, "Help yourself." She gave me a disgusted look like I was pathetic and stormed into my house. I heard her heels clicking on the hardwood, heard the jangle of keys, heard her coming back. This was it. This was the moment I could stop this. I could tell her the truth. I could save her life. "Thanks for nothing," Jessica said, sliding into the driver's seat. I watched her adjust the mirror, watched her put on her seatbelt, watched her put the key in the ignition. "The brakes?" I started. She glared at me through the windshield. "What?" I could see the contempt in her eyes, the satisfaction of a woman who'd won. She thought David loved her. She thought they had a future together. She had no idea she was just a replacement, a younger model for a man who'd grown tired of his wife. "Nothing," I said. "Drive safe." She didn't even respond, just started the engine and backed out of my driveway fast enough to leave rubber on the concrete. I watched the SUV speed down our quiet street, watched it turn the corner toward the highway, watched it disappear. Then I walked back into my house, locked the door, and went upstairs to the guest bedroom. The one with the window that overlooked the driveway. The one where I could see everything, but no one could see me. I sat on the bed and waited. My phone buzzed. "David." "Hey, honey, how's your day going? Did you make it to the store okay?" I stared at the message. He was checking, making sure I'd taken the bait, making sure his plan had worked. I didn't respond. An hour passed. Then 2. My phone rang. David calling. I let it go to voicemail. He called again. Again. Voicemail. 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 By the 3rd hour, my hands had stopped shaking. I felt calm. Detached. Like I was watching this happen to someone else. I knew what I'd done. I knew what it made me. But I also knew that if I'd warned her, if I'd saved her, David would have just tried again. Next week, next month. He'd already decided I needed to die. He'd already crossed that line. At least this way, the truth would come out. At least this way, he'd pay. I heard his car pull into the driveway around 4. His footsteps on the walkway. The door opening. "Honey, I'm home. Where are you?" I didn't answer. I stayed perfectly still in the guest room, barely breathing. I heard him walk through the house, calling my name. Heard him check the garage. Heard him notice his SUV was gone. And then I heard him laugh. Actually laugh. A sound of pure, giddy relief. Thank God, he muttered. I could barely hear him from upstairs, but the words carried. Thank God it's over. He went to the kitchen. I heard the clink of glass, the glug of liquid. He was drinking, celebrating. My husband was downstairs celebrating my death. I heard him on the phone a few minutes later. His voice was different now. Warm, affectionate, the way he used to sound with me. Baby, it's me. Call me back when you get this. I have amazing news. We can finally be together. No more hiding. No more waiting. It's finally over. He left 3 more messages for Jessica over the next hour, each one more confused than the last. Why wasn't she answering? Where was she? I heard him pacing, heard him turn on the TV, heard him opening another bottle. By 6 o'clock, he was in front of the bathroom mirror. I crept out of the guest room and stood at the top of the stairs, listening. Officer, I don't know what happened, he was saying to his reflection, his voice breaking with practiced grief. She said she was going to the store. The brakes must have failed. I should have gotten them checked. This is all my fault. He was rehearsing, perfecting his performance as the devastated widower, making sure the tears looked real, the guilt looked genuine. I went back to the guest room and sat on the bed. I didn't feel angry anymore. I didn't feel scared. I just felt cold. Outside, the sun was setting. Any minute now, they'd find the car, find the body, come to tell the grieving husband that his wife was dead. I heard the doorbell ring at 7:30. Then voices. David's and someone else's. Official. Serious. I heard David say, "Officer, is everything all right?" I stood up, smoothed my dress, and moved to the top of the stairs. Close enough to hear. Far enough to stay hidden. This was it. This was the moment my husband would learn what it felt like to lose everything. And I was going to watch every second of it. From my position at the top of the stairs, I could hear everything. David's voice had that perfect note of confusion, the kind that came so naturally to liars. "Officer, is something wrong? Is this about a parking ticket? Mr. Patterson, may we come inside?" The voice was male, deep, with the kind of weariness that came from delivering bad news too many times. Of course, of course." David stepped back, and I heard 2 sets of footsteps enter our foyer. "Can I get you anything? Water? Coffee?" "That won't be necessary, sir. Is there somewhere we can sit down?" "The living room, please." David's voice had shifted now, concern creeping in. He was good at this. He'd always been good at reading a room, adjusting his performance to match the audience. I moved silently across the carpeted hallway to the guest room that overlooked the front of the house. From here, I could see the police cruiser parked at our curb, lights off, but unmistakable. A few neighbors had come out to their porches, pretending to water plants or check their mail while they watched. Back downstairs, I heard the officers settling into the living room. Our leather couch creaked. David would be sitting in his recliner, the one he'd bought last year, over my objections because it was too big for the space. "Mr. Patterson, I'm Officer Chen, and this is Officer Rodriguez. We need to ask you some questions about your vehicle." "My vehicle?" David's confusion sounded so genuine. "Which one?" "The black SUV registered to this address. A 2021 Ford Explorer, license plate number 7 Delta Charlie 9425. "Yes, that's mine. What about it?" There was a pause. I could picture the officers exchanging glances, the way they always did in movies before delivering devastating news. "Sir, that vehicle was involved in a serious accident this afternoon, on Highway 9, near the intersection with Maple Ridge Road." "An accident?" David's voice rose. "Oh my God, is my wife okay? Is she hurt?" My fingernails dug into my palms. The performance was starting. "Sir, who was driving the vehicle today?" "My wife. I let her borrow it this morning. I insisted she take it because..." He stopped, and I could hear him breathing hard. Oh God, please tell me she's okay." "Mr. Patterson, I need you to stay calm. Can you tell me your wife's name?" "Rebecca. Rebecca Ann Patterson. Please, is she in the hospital? I need to see her." "Sir, when did you last speak to your wife?" "This morning, before I left for work." I tried calling her this afternoon, but she didn't answer, and I just thought—" His voice broke beautifully. "I thought she was busy. Please, you have to tell me what happened." I heard movement, the rustle of fabric. Officer Rodriguez spoke for the first time, her voice gentler than her partner's. "Mr. Patterson, the vehicle left the roadway at approximately 11:40 this morning. It appears the brakes failed completely. The vehicle went through the guardrail and down an embankment. By the time emergency services arrived," she trailed off. David made a sound like he'd been punched in the stomach. No, that's not possible. I just had that car serviced. The brakes were fine." "When was the last service, sir?" 2 months ago, maybe 3. "I have the receipts. I can show you." "This doesn't make any sense." Officer Chen's voice hardened slightly. "Mr. Patterson, were you aware of any mechanical issues with the vehicle?" "No, nothing. It drove perfectly fine. I drove it yesterday, and everything was normal." "And yet you insisted your wife take it today instead of her own vehicle?" There it was, the first hint of suspicion. I held my breath. "It's a nicer car," David said, defensive now. "More comfortable. I was just trying to be nice." "Oh God, this is my fault. If I hadn't made her take it—" "Mr. Patterson, we're going to need you to come down to the station to answer some more questions. We also need to contact your wife's next of kin. Her mother. She lives in Greenfield, at the Sunrise Assisted Living Facility. But I should be the one to tell her. I can't let her find out from strangers." "We'll handle the notifications, sir. Right now, we need to focus on understanding what happened." I heard David stand up. "Can I see her? Can I see my wife?" The pause was longer this time. Too long. "Sir, the accident was severe. The vehicle caught fire after the impact. We're going to need you to provide us with any dental records or identifying information that might help with—" "Dental records?" David's voice went up an octave. "What are you saying? Are you saying you can't even identify her?" "The medical examiner is doing everything possible, sir. But we need to prepare you for the possibility that visual identification may not be possible." David made a sound I'd never heard before. An animal noise, raw and broken. For a split second, I almost felt sorry for him. Then I remembered the break line, the way he'd kissed me goodbye, the 3 voicemails he'd left Jessica, celebrating that it was finally over. "I need to call someone," David was saying. I can't do this alone. Can I call my brother?" "Of course, but Mr. Patterson, I need to ask you to stay local. We'll likely have more questions as the investigation continues." "Investigation? You said it was an accident." "It is an accident," Officer Rodriguez said quickly. "But anytime there's a fatal collision, we conduct a thorough investigation. It's standard procedure." "Fatal." David repeated the word like he was testing it out. "My wife is dead." "We're very sorry for your loss, sir." I heard them moving toward the door, heard David's footsteps, heavy and uneven. He was really selling it. I had to give him credit. The front door opened. "One more thing, Mr. Patterson," Officer Chen said. "You mentioned you called your wife this afternoon. Multiple times, according to your statement. Did she ever answer?" "No, I thought she was ignoring me. We had a fight last week about something stupid, and sometimes she needs space." His voice cracked again. "I should have kept calling. I should have known something was wrong." "What was the fight about?" "I don't even remember. Something about me working late. She thought I was spending too much time at the office." He laughed, bitter and sad. "She was right. God, she was always right, and I never listened." Officer Rodriguez's voice softened. "Sir, do you have someone who can stay with you tonight? You shouldn't be alone." "I'll call my brother. And I need to tell Rebecca's mother. She's going to be devastated. We can send a victim advocate with you, if you'd like." No. I need to do this myself. It's the least I can do." They left finally. I watched from the window as David stood in the doorway, his shoulders shaking, his hand over his face. The neighbors who'd been pretending not to watch now approached cautiously, offering condolences, asking if he needed anything. He played the devastated husband perfectly, thanking them, saying he just needed time, promising to let them know about funeral arrangements. When the last neighbor left and David closed the door, I expected him to drop the act, to relax, maybe even to smile. Instead, He went to the kitchen and I heard him vomit into the sink. I frowned. That wasn't part of an act. That was real. He rinsed his mouth and then I heard him on the phone. Jeremy, it's David. I need you to come over. Something terrible happened. His voice was steady now, controlled. Rebecca was in an accident. She's gone. His brother's voice was a tinny squawk of shock through the speaker. I know. The police just left. Can you come over? I don't want to be alone right now. More squawking. No, don't bring Jennifer. I just need you. Please, man. I can't handle this. He hung up, and I heard him sink into a chair. Then, softly, I heard him crying. Real crying. Not the performance he'd given the police. I didn't understand. If he wanted me dead, why was he crying? Shouldn't he be relieved? My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out carefully, keeping it on silent. Text from my mother's facility. Hi, Rebecca. Just wanted to confirm you're still coming for lunch tomorrow. Your mom's been asking for you all day. Tomorrow was Friday, our weekly lunch date. David knew that schedule by heart. If he'd wanted to kill me, why plan it for a Thursday? Why not wait until Friday when I'd be on the highway for an hour? Unless he hadn't meant for it to happen on the highway at all. Maybe he'd wanted me to discover the brake failure here, in our driveway. Make me panic, have a heart attack, something that couldn't be traced back to him. Or maybe Jessica showing up had disrupted his timeline entirely. I heard David's phone ring. He answered on the first ring. Jessica? His voice was desperate and hungry. Baby, where have you been? I've been calling you all day. Silence. Then, what do you mean, who is this? My blood ran cold. This is David Patterson. You called me from this number, Jessica Miller's number. Where is she? Is she okay? More silence. David's breathing got faster. What do you mean accident? What are you talking about? I crept to the top of the stairs. I could see him now, standing in the kitchen with his back to me, one hand gripping the counter so hard his knuckles were white. Ford Explorer? Black? Yes, that's my car, but Jessica can't have been... He stopped. I watched his whole body go rigid. What did you say? Whatever the person on the other end said made David's knees buckle. He caught himself on the counter, the phone pressed so hard to his ear it had to hurt. No, that's not possible. My wife was driving that car. My wife, not Jessica. There's been a mistake. He listened for a long moment. Then, very quietly, You're sure? You're absolutely sure it was Jessica Miller? The phone fell from his hand and clattered on the tile floor. David stood there, frozen, staring at nothing. Then he started to laugh, high and hysterical and completely unhinged. She knew, he said to the empty kitchen. She knew, and she gave her the keys anyway. Oh my God, what has she done? What have I done? He spun around, and for a second, I thought he'd seen me, but his eyes were unfocused, wild. He ran to the stairs. Rebecca, he screamed. Rebecca. I pressed myself against the wall of the guest room, my heart hammering. I know you're here. I know you didn't take the car. Rebecca. He ran up the stairs, and I heard him throwing open doors. The master bedroom, the bathroom, his office. I stayed perfectly still in the guest room, barely breathing, as his footsteps pounded down the hallway. He stopped outside the guest room door. I know what you did, he said quietly. I know you gave her the keys. You knew about the brakes, and you let her drive anyway. I didn't move, didn't breathe. That makes you a murderer too, Rebecca. You're just as guilty as I am. Maybe more, because you had a choice. You could have warned her and you didn't. He was right. God help me. He was absolutely right. So congratulations, he continued, his voice breaking. You won. I'm going to prison for killing the woman I loved, and you get to walk away clean. But you'll have to live with what you did. Every day for the rest of your life, you'll know you let an innocent woman die to save yourself. He turned and walked back to the kitchen. I heard him pour another drink, even though it wasn't even 10 in the morning. I slid down the wall and sat on the floor, my whole body shaking. Jessica's face flashed through my mind. The way she'd looked at me with such contempt. The way she'd climbed into the driver's seat without a second thought. I could have stopped it. I could have saved her, but I hadn't. Because in that moment, all I could think about was survival. About making David pay for what he'd tried to do to me. What did that make me? My phone buzzed. Text from the school principal where I taught. Rebecca, I heard about the accident. I'm so sorry. Please take all the time you need. Your classroom is covered. They thought I was dead. The whole town probably thought I was dead by now. I needed to reveal myself. I needed to end this before it went any further. But something held me back. Some instinct that said if I showed myself now, David would find a way to turn this around. He'd paint me as the villain, the jealous wife who murdered his mistress and faked her own death to frame him. I needed more time, more evidence, more proof that he'd been planning to kill me all along. So I stayed hidden in my own house, a ghost haunting the man who tried to murder me, waiting for the perfect moment to rise from the dead. Jeremy stayed for 3 hours. I listened to him comfort David, make phone calls, order food that David wouldn't eat. He was a good brother. Patient and steady, everything David wasn't. You should try to sleep, Jeremy said around 10. I can stay over if you want. Jennifer won't mind. No, David said. His voice was flat now, exhausted. I need to be alone. I need to process this. Are you sure? Man, you shouldn't be by yourself right now. I'm sure. Thank you for coming. I need some time. After Jeremy left, the house fell silent. I heard David moving around downstairs, the clink of glass, the sound of liquid pouring. He was drinking again, heavily from the sound of it. Around midnight, I heard his footsteps on the stairs. Slow, unsteady. He went into the master bedroom and closed the door. I waited an hour, then crept out of the guest room. My legs were stiff from sitting still for so long. I made my way carefully down the hallway, avoiding the spots I knew would creak. The master bedroom door was closed. I put my ear against it and heard David snoring. Drunk then. Good. I went downstairs, moving through my own house like a ghost. In the kitchen, I found 3 empty whiskey bottles lined up on the counter. In the living room, David's phone lay on the coffee table. I picked it up. No password. He'd never bothered with one, said he had nothing to hide. The irony wasn't lost on me. I scrolled through his messages, found the thread with Jessica immediately. It went back months, sweet messages, explicit messages, plans for a future together. I can't wait until we don't have to hide anymore. Soon, baby, I promise. Soon everything will be different. I love you. I've never felt this way about anyone. I felt sick reading them, not because they were a surprise, but because they were so banal. Every cheating husband in history had sent these same empty promises to his mistress. I kept scrolling and found something interesting. A text from 3 days ago. Jessica. I'm done waiting, David. Either you leave her or I'm telling her everything. David. You can't. Please. Just give me a little more time. I have a plan. Jessica. You always have a plan. I don't believe you anymore. David. This one will work. I promise. 1 week. Give me 1 more week and everything will be perfect. 1 week. He'd given himself 1 week to get rid of me. I took screenshots of everything and sent them to my own email. Then I deleted the sent messages from his phone and put it back exactly where I found it. In his office, I found more evidence. Printed emails from Jessica. A receipt from a jewelry store for an engagement ring dated 2 weeks ago. Life insurance paperwork showing he'd increased my policy to $2 million 6 months ago without telling me. I photographed everything with my phone, then went back upstairs to the guest room. My phone showed 3:47 a.m. In a few hours, the sun would rise on my first day of being legally dead. I must have dozed off, because the next thing I knew, sunlight was streaming through. The window and voices were coming from downstairs. I checked my phone. 9:23 a.m. I'd slept for 5 hours. Downstairs, I heard David talking to someone. Male voices, official. I crept to my listening post at the top of the stairs. Appreciate you coming to the house, detectives. I'm not really in any state to drive right now. Of course, Mr. Patterson. We understand this is a difficult time. We just have a few follow-up questions about the accident. Different voices than last night. Detectives, not patrol officers. This was escalating. Whatever I can do to help, David said. He sounded tired, hungover, defeated. Have you been able to identify my wife yet? We're still working on that, sir. The medical examiner has been in contact with her dentist. We should have confirmation within the next day or two. I keep thinking this is a nightmare, that I'm going to wake up and she'll be here, making coffee, telling me about her plans for the day. His voice broke convincingly. I'd give anything to hear her complain about me leaving my socks on the floor one more time. I rolled my eyes. I'd stopped complaining about his socks 15 years ago. Mr. Patterson, we need to ask you some specific questions about the vehicle. Our forensics team has examined it, and we found some concerning evidence. Silence. Then, what kind of evidence? The brake line was severed, deliberately cut with a sharp instrument, most likely a utility knife or box cutter. This wasn't mechanical failure, Mr. Patterson. This was sabotage. I heard David's sharp intake of breath. Sabotage? You mean someone wanted to hurt Rebecca? We're exploring all possibilities. Can you think of anyone who might have wanted to harm your wife? Anyone she had conflict with? No. Everyone loved Rebecca. She's a second-grade teacher, for God's sake. She spends her days with children and baking cookies for the neighbors. Who would want to hurt her? What about you, sir? Can you think of anyone who might want to hurt you? Another pause. Longer this time. Me? It was your vehicle, Mr. Patterson. Originally, you were supposed to be driving it. Isn't that correct? I suppose. But I gave it to Rebecca that morning. I wanted her to have the more comfortable car. Why that morning specifically? Was there something special about yesterday? No, it was going to be hot. I thought she'd appreciate the better air conditioning. It was 62 degrees yesterday, sir. Hardly hot. David's voice took on a defensive edge. I didn't check the weather. I was just trying to be thoughtful. Did your wife usually drive your vehicle? Sometimes. We shared cars depending on who needed what. It wasn't unusual. But you specifically insisted she take it yesterday morning. According to the neighbors we interviewed, they heard you arguing about it on the front lawn. My eyebrows shot up. We hadn't been on the front lawn. They were bluffing, trying to trip him up. We weren't arguing, David said carefully. Rebecca wanted to take her car, and I suggested she take mine instead. It was a conversation, not an argument. I see. And where were you yesterday between the hours of 10 a.m. and noon? At work, at Henderson and Associates downtown. I'm an accountant there. I can give you the address, my supervisor's name, whatever you need. We'll need that, yes. Can anyone verify you were there during that time frame? I had a meeting at 10:30 with a client. It lasted about an hour. My assistant can confirm. The client can confirm. And before the meeting, I was at my desk, working on spreadsheets. I imagine there are security cameras in the building. We'll be checking those. Mr. Patterson, I need to ask you directly. Did you tamper with the brakes on your vehicle? What? No, of course not. Why would I sabotage my own car? That's what we're trying to determine, sir. You increased your wife's life insurance policy significantly 6 months ago. $2 million is quite a lot of money. That was just good financial planning. Rebecca suggested it herself. We were getting older, thinking about retirement. We wanted to make sure we were protected. That was a lie. I'd never suggested any such thing. I didn't even know about the policy increase. Do you have any documentation showing it was your wife's idea? No, it was a conversation. People don't document every conversation they have with their spouse. Of course not. Mr. Patterson, are you currently involved in a romantic relationship with anyone other than your wife? The question hung in the air like a guillotine blade. No. David said finally, Rebecca was the only woman in my life. No one at work? No old flames you've reconnected with? No, I love my wife. I would never cheat on her. Another lie. He was stacking them up now, each one adding weight to his eventual collapse. We'll need to examine your phone and computer, sir. With your permission, of course. Why, I told you I haven't done anything wrong. Then you won't mind us taking a look, unless you have something to hide? David's breathing was audible even from the top of the stairs. Fine, take them. You won't find anything. Because he didn't know I'd already copied everything. He thought his secrets were still safe. We'll also need you to come down to the station later today to give a formal statement and provide fingerprint samples for elimination purposes. Fingerprints? You think I cut the brake line? We found multiple prints on and around the damaged area. We need to determine whose they are. Yours will likely be there from normal maintenance and checks. We just need to eliminate them from our investigation. Fine, whatever you need. I want you to find out who did this to Rebecca. We will, sir. We absolutely will. The detectives left a few minutes later, taking David's phone and laptop with them. I watched from the upstairs window as they loaded the items into evidence bags and drove away. David stood in the foyer for a long moment after they left. Then he walked to the stairs and looked up, directly at where I was standing. I jerked back, heart pounding, but he wasn't looking at me. He was looking through me, his expression haunted. I know you're in this house, he said quietly. I know you're hiding somewhere, watching me fall apart. This is what you wanted, isn't it? To punish me? To make me pay? I held my breath. You killed her, Rebecca. You gave her those keys knowing exactly what would happen. You murdered Jessica just as much as I did. Maybe more, because you had a choice. You could have warned her and you didn't. He was right. God help me, he was absolutely right. So congratulations, he continued, his voice breaking. You won. I'm going to prison for killing the woman I loved, and you get to walk away clean. But you'll have to live with what you did. Every day for the rest of your life, you'll know you let an innocent woman die to save yourself. He turned and walked back to the kitchen. I heard him pour another drink, even though it wasn't even 10 in the morning. I slid down the wall and sat on the floor, my whole body shaking. Jessica's face flashed through my mind, the way she'd looked at me with such contempt, the way she'd climbed into the driver's seat without a second thought. I could have stopped it. I could have saved her, but I hadn't. Because in that moment, all I could think about was survival, about making David pay for what he'd tried to do to me. What did that make me? My phone buzzed. Text from the school principal where I taught. Rebecca, I heard about the accident. I'm so sorry. Please take all the time you need. Your classroom is covered. They thought I was dead. The whole town probably thought I was dead by now. I needed to reveal myself. I needed to end this before it went any further. But something held me back. Some instinct that said if I showed myself now, David would find a way to turn this around. He'd paint me as the villain, the jealous wife who murdered his mistress and faked her own death to frame him. I needed more time, more evidence, more proof that he'd been planning to kill me all along. So I stayed hidden in my own house, a ghost haunting the man who tried to murder me, waiting for the perfect moment to rise from the dead. 2 more days passed. 48 hours of living like a ghost in my own home, surviving on granola bars I found in the back of the pantry and water from the guest bathroom sink, listening to David receive condolence calls, plan a memorial service, play the grieving widower for an endless parade of concerned friends and neighbors. I'd gotten good at reading his moods. The way his voice would shift when he was alone versus when he had an audience. The way he'd cry on command when someone came to the door with a casserole, then pour himself another drink the moment they left. He was unraveling. I could see it in the way his hands shook when he thought no one was watching. The way he'd stand at the bottom of the stairs and stare up into the darkness, knowing I was somewhere in this house, but unable to find me. On the 3rd day, a Saturday, the doorbell rang at 2 in the afternoon. I was in the guest room, reading the messages of sympathy flooding my Facebook page from friends who thought I was dead. Each one felt like a knife twisting in my gut. I heard David answer the door, heard a woman's voice I didn't recognize. Mr. Patterson? I'm Detective Sarah Mitchell. We spoke on the phone. May I come in? Of course. Do you have news? Have you identified? He couldn't finish the sentence. Let's sit down, sir. They moved to the living room. I crept to my usual position at the top of the stairs. Mr. Patterson, we've received confirmation from the medical examiner. The victim has been positively identified through dental records. And? Sir, the victim was not your wife. Silence. Complete, utter silence. Then David's voice, barely a whisper. What? The victim was Jessica Ann Miller, age 37. She was an accountant at Morrison Financial downtown. According to phone records, she'd been in frequent contact with you over the past 6 months. Jessica, he said her name like a prayer and a curse all at once. Oh God, Jessica. Mr. Patterson, can you explain why Ms. Miller was driving your vehicle on the morning of the accident? I don't know. I didn't know she was. I thought Rebecca was driving. Ms. Miller's fingerprints were found on the driver's side door handle and the keys. Your wife's fingerprints were notably absent from the vehicle interior, but were present on the key fob. Can you explain that? I could almost see David's mind racing, trying to construct a plausible lie. Rebecca must have given her the keys, but I don't know why. I didn't even know Jessica was at our house that morning. Really? Because your neighbor, Mrs. Chen from across the street, says she saw Ms. Miller's car parked in front of your house around 9 a.m. on Thursday. She says she saw Ms. Miller go inside, then come back out a few minutes later and drive away in your SUV. I wasn't here. I was at work. Maybe Rebecca loaned her the car. They knew each other from before. Before what, sir? Jessica used to work at my firm. She came to a company barbecue at our house once. Maybe she and Rebecca stayed in touch. I don't know. Mr. Patterson, were you having an extramarital affair with Jessica Miller? The question landed like a bomb. I watched David's shadow on the wall, saw him slump forward. I want a lawyer, he said. That's certainly your right, sir. But I should tell you, we've already examined your phone and laptop. We've seen the messages between you and Ms. Miller. We know about the relationship. We know she was pressuring you to leave your wife. We know you told her you had a plan to fix everything. I didn't kill her, David said, his voice cracking. I loved her. I would never hurt her. Then who cut the brake line on your vehicle, Mr. Patterson? Who deliberately sabotaged that car, knowing whoever drove it would die? I don't know. Maybe someone who wanted to hurt Rebecca. Maybe someone from her work, or a parent of a student, or... We've investigated your wife's life thoroughly, sir. She was beloved by everyone. No enemies, no conflicts, no one with any motive to harm her. Then I don't know. Or maybe, Detective Mitchell continued, her voice hardening, the brakes were meant to fail when your wife drove the car. Maybe you planned to get rid of her, collect the $2 million insurance policy, and start a new life with your mistress. But something went wrong. Ms. Miller drove the car instead. And now, the woman you loved is dead, and your wife is missing. Missing? David's voice went up an octave. What do you mean missing? Your wife's body wasn't in that vehicle, Mr. Patterson. Which means she's either dead somewhere else, or she's alive. Either way, we need to find her. Where is Rebecca? I don't know. I thought she was dead. You told me she was dead. We told you someone died in your vehicle. We never confirmed it was your wife. You assumed that on your own. I heard David start to cry. Real, desperate sobs. This is insane. This is completely insane. I want my lawyer. I'm not saying anything else without my lawyer. That's fine, sir, but I need you to understand something. Right now, you're our primary suspect in 2 potential crimes. The murder of Jessica Miller and the murder or disappearance of your wife, Rebecca Patterson. We have motive, we have opportunity, and we have evidence of premeditation. The only thing that might help you at this point is cooperation. I didn't kill anyone, David screamed. Rebecca did this. Don't you see? She found out about Jessica, and she did this. She cut the brakes, and she gave Jessica the keys, and she's hiding somewhere, watching me fall apart. Rebecca is the murderer, not me. My blood turned to ice. That's quite an accusation, Mr. Patterson. Do you have any evidence to support that claim? Check the security footage from our street. Mrs. Chen has cameras. I know she does. Check them. You'll see Rebecca gave Jessica the keys. You'll see she knew about the brakes and she let Jessica drive anyway. We've already obtained Mrs. Chen's footage, sir. It shows Ms. Miller arriving at your house at 9:07 a.m. It shows her entering the house at 9:09 a.m. and exiting at 9:14 a.m. with car keys in her hand. It shows her getting into your vehicle and driving away at 9:15 a.m. Your wife is visible in 2 frames, standing in the driveway. She appears to be speaking with Ms. Miller, but we can't determine what was said. So you see, Rebecca was there. Rebecca gave her the keys. What we see, Mr. Patterson, is a brief interaction. We don't see your wife tampering with the vehicle. We don't see her forcing Ms. Miller to take the keys. We don't see anything that suggests your wife knew the brakes had been sabotaged. Then who cut the brake line? Forensics found your fingerprints on the damaged brake line, Mr. Patterson. Fresh prints, overlaying older prints, suggesting you touched that area recently. How do you explain that? I check the car fluids regularly. I must have touched it during normal maintenance. The prints were on the cut itself, sir, on the exposed metal. There's no reason for your prints to be there unless you were the one who made the cut. That's impossible. I didn't touch the brake line. I didn't even know it was cut until you told me. Then how did your prints get there? David was silent. I could practically hear him thinking, trying to find a way out of the trap closing around him. I want my lawyer, he said finally. I'm not answering any more questions. Stand up, Mr. Patterson. What? Why? David Patterson, you're under arrest for the murder of Jessica Ann Miller. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. I listened to the detective read him his rights, listened to the click of handcuffs, listened to David's protests and demands for his lawyer. Wait, David said as they started moving toward the door. What about Rebecca? What about finding my wife? We have officers searching for her, Mr. Patterson. If she's alive, we'll find her. If she's not, the detective trailed off meaningfully. She's alive, David said with absolute certainty. She's alive, and she did this to me. When you find her, you'll see. You'll see I'm telling the truth. They led him out of the house. I watched from the upstairs window as they put him in the back of an unmarked car and drove away. Then I was alone, truly alone for the first time in 3 days. I should have felt relieved, victorious. David was arrested. He was going to pay for what he tried to do. Instead, I felt hollow, empty, because he was right about one thing. I had let Jessica die. I'd made a choice in that split second when she demanded the keys, and my choice had killed her. I sat on the floor of the guest room and let myself cry for the first time since this whole nightmare began. Cried for Jessica, who died thinking she was going to see the man she loved. Cried for the 23 years I'd wasted on a man who'd valued me so little, he'd tried to murder me. Cried for the person I used to be. Before I became someone who could watch another woman drive to her death and do nothing to stop it. My phone buzzed. Text from Detective Mitchell sent to my number. Mrs. Patterson, if you're receiving this message, please contact me immediately. You're not in trouble. We just need to know you're safe. They'd found my number in David's contacts. They were reaching out, hoping I'd respond. I stared at the message for a long time. This was it. This was the moment I could end it. I could call the detective, explain what happened, come out of hiding. But then what? David would tell them I knew about the brakes. Mrs. Chen's footage would show me talking to Jessica before she drove away. They'd question why I didn't warn her, why I didn't stop her, why I let her die. And I didn't have a good answer. Not one that wouldn't make me look like a murderer too. So I didn't respond. I deleted the message and turned off my phone. I needed more time. Just a little more time to figure out how to tell this story in a way that wouldn't destroy me along with David. Outside, the sun was setting. Saturday evening. In a normal world, David and I would be making dinner together, watching a movie, planning what to do with our Sunday. Instead, he was in a jail cell and I was hiding in my own home, both of us trapped by the choices we'd made. I heard a car pull into the driveway, footsteps on the walkway, a key in the lock. I froze. David was in jail. Who had a key to our house? The door opened and I heard a familiar voice. Rebecca? Rebecca? Honey, are you here? My mother. Oh God, my mother who thought I was dead, who'd probably been notified by the police, who'd been mourning me for 3 days. And she'd just walked into my house. Rebecca, I know this sounds crazy, but I can feel that you're here. A mother knows. Please, baby, if you're here, please let me know you're okay. I heard her moving through the downstairs, calling my name. Heard her start crying. I don't care what happened, she called out. I don't care what you did or didn't do. You're my daughter. Please, please let me know you're alive. I stood up slowly, walked to the top of the stairs, looked down at my mother standing in the foyer, her face streaked with tears, her hands shaking. Hi, Mom, I said quietly. She looked up and saw me. Her whole face transformed, relief and joy and confusion all mixing together. Oh, thank God, she breathed. Oh, thank God you're alive. I'm alive, I confirmed. But Mom, you can't tell anyone you saw me. Not yet. Please, I need you to trust me. She climbed the stairs faster than I'd seen her move in years and pulled me into a crushing hug. Tell me everything, she said. Start from the beginning and don't leave anything out. So I did. I told her about the brake line, about David's affair, about Jessica taking the keys. I told her about hiding in the house, about listening to David fall apart, about the evidence I'd collected. And when I was done, my mother looked at me with an expression I'd never seen before. Not disappointment, not judgment, just cold, calculated determination. Here's what we're going to do, she said. We're going to wait until the police come to this house to search for evidence. We're going to make sure you have the moral high ground when you reveal yourself. We're going to make sure everyone knows you're the victim in this story, not the villain. But I let Jessica die, Mom. I could have saved her, and I didn't. Jessica made her own choices, my mother said firmly. She chose to have an affair with a married man. She chose to demand his car keys and drive away without asking any questions. You didn't owe her anything. You owe yourself everything. That's not how the law works. Then we make sure the law never asks that question. Come on, we have work to do. My 72-year-old mother, who I'd always thought of as fragile and in need of protection, took charge like a general planning a war. And I realized that maybe the apple hadn't fallen far from the tree after all. My mother stayed with me that night. We ordered pizza under a fake name and had it delivered to the neighbor's house, then snuck over to grab it after the delivery driver left. We sat in the dark guest room, eating cold pepperoni and planning like we were plotting a heist. They'll come tomorrow, Mom said, her eyes sharp despite her age. Sunday. They'll want to search the house while David's in custody. Look for evidence of what happened to you. That's when you make your appearance. What if they don't come tomorrow? They will. That detective, Mitchell, she's smart. She knows something doesn't add up. She'll want to search this place top to bottom. Mom took a bite of pizza and chewed thoughtfully. When they do, you need to be in a position that makes you look like a victim, not a perpetrator. How do I do that? Where would a terrified woman hide from her husband if she discovered he was trying to kill her? I thought about it. Somewhere she felt safe, somewhere with a lock. Exactly, the master bathroom has a lock, doesn't it? It did. A flimsy thing that wouldn't stop anyone determined, but it was something. You hide there, Mom continued. You leave evidence that you've been terrified and in survival mode. Empty water bottles, maybe some food wrappers, your phone with the recording you made. And when they find you, you're traumatized, scared. You thought David might come back and finish the job. You didn't know he'd been arrested because you were too afraid to turn on your phone. They'll ask why I didn't call for help earlier. Because you were in shock. Because you witnessed your husband try to murder you and you froze. Because you're not a detective or a lawyer, you're a second-grade teacher who just watched her entire life explode. People will understand that, Rebecca. People will sympathize. I wanted to believe her, but I kept seeing Jessica's face, the contempt in her eyes when I'd handed over the keys. What about Jessica? They'll want to know about my interaction with her. What interaction? Mom's face was perfectly innocent. You saw a woman you vaguely recognized from a company party years ago. She was agitated, said she needed to borrow a car. You were confused, but gave her the keys to your husband's SUV because you're a helpful person, and she seemed desperate. You had no idea about the affair. You had no idea about the brakes. You were just trying to help someone in distress. The footage shows us talking. The footage shows a brief conversation. There's no audio. No one can prove what was actually said. Mom leaned forward. Rebecca, listen to me. David cut those brakes intending to kill you. He had an affair. He increased your life insurance without your knowledge. He is the villain in this story. All you did was survive. I let someone die. You made a split-second decision in a traumatic situation. That's not the same as murder. That's not even the same as negligence. You didn't cut the brakes. You didn't force Jessica to take the car. She made her own choice. I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to believe her so badly. We slept in shifts that night, Mom and I, taking turns keeping watch. When the sun rose on Sunday morning, we put our plan into action. Mom snuck out through the back gate and walked the 3 blocks to where she'd parked her car. She'd come back officially through the front door to collect some of my things for the funeral. I staged the master bathroom to look like I'd been hiding there for days. Left water bottles and granola bar wrappers. Propped a chair under the doorknob for added effect. Put my phone on the counter with the recording app visible and the battery almost dead. Then I sat on the bathroom floor and waited. Mom came back around 10 a.m. I heard her let herself in, heard her call my name like she didn't know I was there. Heard her start packing a bag in the master bedroom with clothes for my burial. At 11:30, the doorbell rang. I heard Mom answer it. Heard Detective Mitchell's voice. Mrs. Winters, what are you doing here? Collecting some things for Rebecca's service? Mom said, her voice thick with grief. I have a key. David gave it to me years ago for emergencies. I hope it's all right that I'm here. Actually, we have a warrant to search the premises. I'm going to need you to step outside while we conduct our investigation. Of course, I'm sorry. I just wanted to have something of hers to bury. Mom's voice broke convincingly. They said there wasn't enough left to have an open casket. I heard Detective Mitchell's voice soften. I'm very sorry for your loss, ma'am. This won't take long. Mom left, and I heard multiple sets of footsteps enter the house. At least 3 people, maybe 4. They spread out, and I could track their movements by the sounds of drawers opening, closets being searched, furniture being moved. One set of footsteps came upstairs, headed toward the master bedroom. This was it. I curled up on the bathroom floor, making myself small. Made sure my phone was visible. Made sure I looked like I'd been here for days, terrified and alone. The footsteps entered the bedroom, paused, then headed toward the bathroom door. A knock. Police? Is anyone in? There? I didn't answer. Held my breath. Another knock, harder. This is the police. We're coming in. The doorknob rattled. The door was locked from the inside. Detective Mitchell? We might have something up here. More footsteps on the stairs. Multiple people now, gathering outside the bathroom door. Mrs. Patterson? Rebecca Patterson? This is Detective Sarah Mitchell with the police department. If you're in there, you need to open this door right now. I let out a small, frightened sound. Not quite a word, just a noise that said I was alive and afraid. Rebecca, you're not in any trouble. We just need to make sure you're safe. Can you open the door for me? With shaking hands, I reached up and unlocked the door. Didn't open it, just unlocked it. The door swung open and Detective Mitchell stood there, her weapon drawn but pointed down. Her eyes widened when she saw me huddled on the floor. I've got her, she said to someone behind her. She's alive. Get an ambulance. She holstered her weapon and crouched down to my level. Rebecca, my name is Sarah Mitchell. I'm a detective with the police. You're safe now. Can you tell me if you're injured? I shook my head. My voice came out as a croak. Is he here? Is David here? No, David's in custody. He can't hurt you. You're safe. He tried to kill me, I whispered. The brakes. He cut the brakes and told me to drive his car. He wanted me dead. I know, we know. But you're safe now. Can you stand up? Can you come out of here? She helped me to my feet. My legs were legitimately shaky from sitting in one position for so long. She guided me out of the bathroom and into the bedroom where 2 uniformed officers were waiting. One of them, a young woman with kind eyes, brought me a bottle of water. Small sips, she said. Detective Mitchell sat me on the edge of the bed. Rebecca, I need to ask you some questions. Is that okay? I nodded. When did you last see your husband? Thursday morning, when he left for work. He'd been so insistent I take his car. He kept pushing and pushing. After he left, I went outside to get something from the SUV, and I swallowed hard. I saw the brake fluid on the driveway. I looked under the car, and the line was cut. Clean, like someone did it on purpose. What did you do when you saw that? I panicked. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't believe David would actually try to hurt me. I thought maybe I was being paranoid, maybe it was just a coincidence. But you didn't drive the car. No, I was going to call the police, but then I stopped, let my voice tremble. Then she showed up. Who showed up? Jessica Miller. I recognized her from a company event years ago. She parked across the street and came storming up to the house asking for David. She was angry. She said her car wouldn't start, and she was going to take his. She saw the keys on the kitchen table and just took them. You didn't try to stop her? This was the critical moment. The lie that would save me or destroy me. I tried to warn her, I said, meeting the detective's eyes. I said the brakes, but she just glared at me and told me to mind my own business. She was so angry, so hostile. She got in the car and drove away before I could explain. I didn't know what to do. I didn't even know who she really was or why she was so angry with David. So you didn't know about your husband's affair? I let my face crumble. Not until later, after she left, I started looking through David's phone. He'd forgotten it that morning. That's when I found all the messages, the affair, the plans to leave me, the text where he told her he had a plan to fix everything. Tears were streaming down my face now, real ones. That's when I realized he was actually going to kill me, that this wasn't paranoia, it was real. Why didn't you call the police then? Because I was terrified. Because I thought if I called and told them my husband tried to kill me, but I had no proof except a cut brake line that could have been anything, they wouldn't believe me. I thought David would come home and finish the job. So I hid. In the bathroom? At first I hid in the guest room. I watched from the window when you came Thursday night. I heard David talking to the officers. He was so convincing, so sad. I realized he'd already started building his alibi. I thought if I came forward, he'd find a way to make me look crazy or guilty. I looked down at my hands. When did you arrest him? Yesterday afternoon, for the murder of Jessica Miller. I closed my eyes. She's really dead. Yes, I'm very sorry. If I'd stopped her, if I'd explained about the brakes properly, I shook my head. I keep thinking about that, about how I could have saved her if I'd just been clearer, less confused, faster. Detective Mitchell's expression softened. Rebecca, you're a victim here too. Your husband tried to murder you. The fact that his mistress died instead doesn't make you responsible. But I feel responsible. That's a normal response to trauma. But feeling guilty and being guilty are two different things. She paused. I need to take your official statement. I also need to collect your phone and any evidence you might have gathered while you were hiding. I handed her my phone. There's a recording from Thursday night. I started recording when you came to arrest David yesterday. I was so afraid, and I wanted proof of what he said in case I trailed off. She took the phone carefully. This could be very helpful. Thank you. They took me to the hospital first for a medical evaluation. Dehydration, they said. Shock. Mild hypothermia from spending days in an unheated bathroom. Nothing serious, but they wanted to keep me overnight for observation. Mom was waiting when they brought me in. She hugged me hard enough to hurt. My baby, she whispered. You're okay. You're going to be okay. I wanted to believe her. They moved David to a holding cell at the county jail. I gave my official statement to Detective Mitchell while a victim advocate sat beside me, offering tissues and water and sympathy. I told the same story I'd told before. Confused wife, cut brakes, angry stranger demanding car keys. Failed attempt to warn her. Terror and hiding. If Detective Mitchell suspected I was leaving anything out, she didn't show it. One last question, she said when we were done. Did you know Jessica Miller was your husband's mistress when you gave her the keys? I looked her straight in the eye. No, I had no idea David was having an affair until after she drove away, and I looked through his phone. If I'd known, I would have called the police immediately. It was a lie. A complete, bald-faced lie. But it was the lie that would let me sleep at night. The lie that would let me live with what I'd done. The lie that would set me free, while David rotted in prison for a murder I'd helped create. Detective Mitchell nodded, satisfied. Thank you, Rebecca. I know this has been incredibly difficult. If you think of anything else, anything at all, please call me. She gave me her card and left. The victim advocate stayed a little longer, giving me resources for trauma counseling and domestic violence support groups. When everyone was finally gone, and it was just Mom and me in the hospital room, I broke down completely. I'm a horrible person, I sobbed. I'm a murderer. You're a survivor, Mom said firmly. You survived a man who wanted you dead. That's all that matters. But late that night, alone in the dark hospital room while Mom slept in the chair beside my bed, I couldn't help but wonder if she was right. Or if I'd become exactly the kind of monster I'd thought David was. David's trial started 6 months later. By then, I'd moved into a small apartment across town and started seeing a therapist twice a week. I'd taken a leave of absence from teaching, couldn't face the classroom full of children who'd made sympathy cards when they thought I was dead. The prosecution built a devastating case. The cut-break line with David's fingerprints. The affair with Jessica. The increased life insurance policy. The text messages where he promised Jessica he had a plan. The timeline showing he'd been alone in the garage the night before the accident. David's lawyer tried to paint me as the real killer. Tried to suggest I'd known about the affair, sabotaged the brakes myself, and deliberately given Jessica the keys. But without proof, without any evidence beyond speculation, it didn't stick. The jury saw what the prosecution wanted them to see. A man who tried to murder his wife for money and freedom and killed his mistress by mistake. I was called to testify, stood in front of the courtroom in a simple black dress, and told my story under oath. Yes, I'd seen the cut-break line. No, I hadn't known about the affair at that time. Yes, Jessica Miller had demanded the car keys. No, I hadn't understood who she was or why she was so angry. Yes, I tried to warn her about the brakes, but she'd been hostile and left before I could explain properly. The whole time I testified, David stared at me with an expression I couldn't read. Not quite hatred, not quite grief. Something darker and more complicated. When the prosecutor asked me how I felt about my husband now, I looked directly at David and said, I feel sorry for him. He destroyed everything for an affair that wasn't even real. Jessica didn't love him. She loved the idea of him, the fantasy he sold her, and now she's dead, and I'm traumatized, and he's here facing life in prison. Everyone lost. There are no winners in this story. David's lawyer cross-examined me hard, tried to break my story, find inconsistencies, make me admit I'd known more than I claimed. Mrs. Patterson, you expect this jury to believe that you just happened to give those keys to your husband's mistress, that it was pure coincidence? I didn't know she was his mistress at the time. I thought she was just an angry woman who needed help. An angry woman who demanded your husband's car keys. And you just handed them over? Without question? I was confused and frightened. I'd just discovered the cut-break line. I wasn't thinking clearly. But you were thinking clearly enough not to drive the car yourself. Because I'd seen the brake fluid pooling under it. I knew something was wrong. And yet, you let another woman drive it to her death. I tried to warn her, I said, letting my voice break. I said the brakes, but she cut me off and left. It all happened so fast. If I could go back and make her listen, I would. I think about that every single day. It wasn't even entirely a lie. I did think about it every day. I just didn't feel as guilty as I pretended to. The jury deliberated for 8 hours. When they came back, David stood to hear the verdict with his lawyer's hand on his shoulder. Guilty on all counts. First-degree murder, attempted murder, fraud, life in prison without the possibility of parole. David's knees buckled. The bailiffs had to hold him up. He looked at me one last time before they led him away, and his mouth formed words I could read even without sound. "You did this." He was right. But so had he. After the trial, I went back to my apartment and sat in the dark for a long time. The victim advocate called to check on me. My mother called to congratulate me. My principal called to say my job would be waiting whenever I was ready. I didn't answer any of them. Instead, I pulled out a bottle of wine I'd been saving and poured myself a glass. Sat on my small balcony overlooking the parking lot and watched the sunset. Jessica's family had been in the courtroom every day. Her mother, her sister, her teenage nephew. They'd glared at David with hatred and glared at me with confusion, like they couldn't figure out if I was a victim or an accomplice. I couldn't figure it out either. The truth was complicated. The truth was that I'd made a choice in a split second, and that choice had resulted in a woman's death. Maybe I'd been motivated by survival. Maybe I'd been motivated by revenge. Maybe it was both. I'd never told anyone the full truth. Not the police, not my mother, not my therapist. The real story of that morning, the moment when I'd looked at Jessica with her hand on those keys and thought, better you than me. I'd carry that truth alone for the rest of my life. My phone rang, unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Rebecca Patterson? Male voice, official. Yes? This is Officer Chen. We met the night of the incident. I wanted to let you know that we've closed our investigation. All the evidence has been processed, and the case is officially resolved. I wanted to thank you for your cooperation throughout this difficult process. Thank you, I said automatically. How are you doing? Really? The question surprised me. I'm surviving. That's all any of us can do sometimes. He paused. Mrs. Patterson, I've been a cop for 20 years. I've seen a lot of domestic violence cases, a lot of attempted murders. What your husband did to you, you should be dead. But you're not. You survived. That takes strength. If only he knew how I'd survived. Thank you, officer. Take care of yourself. And if you ever need anything, don't hesitate to call. He hung up, and I sat there with the phone in my hand, looking out at the darkening sky. I'd survived. That was true. I'd escaped a man who wanted me dead, and I'd made sure he paid for his crimes. But I'd also let a woman die to save myself. I'd made a choice that I could never take back, never undo. The question was, could I live with that choice? I thought about Jessica's family sitting in that courtroom, grieving a woman they'd lost. I thought about David in prison, paying for a murder he'd planned but hadn't intended for this particular victim. I thought about all the lies I'd told, all the half-truths and omissions that had gotten me here. And I realized something. I could live with it. Not happily, not proudly, but I could carry this weight. Because the alternative was being dead. And dead women don't get second chances. I'd gotten my second chance. I'd survived when I shouldn't have. And maybe that made me selfish. Maybe it made me cold. Maybe it made me a monster. But it made me alive. I finished my wine and went inside. Tomorrow, I'd call the principal and tell her I was ready to come back to work. I'd go to my therapy appointment and talk about healing from trauma. I'd have lunch with my mother and let her tell me how proud she was of my strength. I'd do all the things that survivors do. And late at night, when I couldn't sleep, I'd think about that moment in the driveway. I'd see Jessica's hand on those keys. I'd hear myself saying the brakes in a voice too. Quiet, too late, too insincere. I'd remember that I'd had a choice and I'd chosen myself over her. I'd chosen to live. And I'd spend the rest of my life wondering if that choice made me any different from the man who was now rotting in prison for murder. 3 years later, I stood in front of my second-grade classroom teaching a lesson on choices and consequences. The children were learning about how every action has a reaction, how the decisions we make ripple out into the world. What if you have to make a choice really fast? One student asked. What if you don't have time to think about if it's right or wrong? I thought about a woman with auburn hair and contemptuous eyes climbing into a car with cut brakes. Then you make the best choice you can with the information you have, I said. And sometimes You have to live with the consequences, even when they're hard. But how do you know if you made the right choice? Another student asked. I smiled, the same smile I'd been practicing for 3 years. The smile of someone who'd survived and moved on and healed. You don't always know, I said. Sometimes you just have to trust that you did the best you could in that moment. The students nodded and went back to their worksheets. Outside, the sun was shining. Birds were singing. Life went on. And every night, I dreamed about brake fluid pooling on a driveway and a woman driving to her death in my place. I'd survived. But I'd never truly be free. And maybe that was justice, after all.